All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're exploring a pretty radical idea that came out of one lawyer's fight inside the German court system. What if the key to knowing how a judge will rule isn't actually in the law books, but in their behavior? And what if a machine could spot those behavioral patterns way better than any person ever could?
And this is where he landed. This quote from the lawyer says it all, doesn't it? He's basically saying his entire profession, the deep knowledge of the law he's built over a career, becomes pointless if the people on the bench aren't playing by the same rules. It's a huge claim that shakes the very foundation of the justice system.
So you have to ask, right? How does a lawyer, someone whose whole life is the law, get to a point where he thinks an AI has a better handle on the courtroom than he does? Well, that's the mystery we're unpacking today. It's a story about the search for truth when human behavior gets in the way.
So where did this all begin? Well, this wasn't about just one bad ruling or one bad day in court. It started when the lawyer noticed something, a consistent pattern of what he saw as arbitrary decisions, and his quest for transparency was really just getting started. Think about it. You spend years, maybe decades, mastering your craft, learning every statute, every precedent. And then you walk into court and realize that rulebook you've been studying, it doesn't seem to matter. The outcomes felt totally unpredictable, and his legal expertise seemed to count for nothing. And this wasn't just a hunch. He started documenting it. And look at this list. We're not talking about minor legal technicalities here. He claims fundamental rights, like the right to a lawful judge, a cornerstone of any fair system, were just systematically ignored time and time again.
And then things got even stranger. The court actually banned audio recordings of the proceedings. Now, from the lawyer's point of view, this had nothing to do with courtroom procedure. He saw it as a deliberate move to avoid being documented, to keep what was happening behind closed doors.
This quote just captures the whole situation perfectly. The court puts out this ban, but the language is so vague, so murky, that the lawyer is left saying, I don't even know what you mean by utilization, or what will happen to me if I break this unclear rule. This pattern of behavior just begged for an explanation.
Okay, so seeing this consistent pattern, he knew he had to dig deeper. This quest became bigger than just winning his own case. It was now about understanding the system itself. What was the root cause of all this? So what could possibly explain this kind of judicial behavior? His search for an answer led him down two very different and pretty fascinating rabbit holes. One was kind of expected, the other, well, it was way out there.
So on the one hand, you've got the psychological path. This is the stuff we hear about: cognitive biases, emotional reactions, the known bugs in the human operating system. But then he explored a second path, a biological one, an unusual hypothesis that something else might be influencing behavior from the inside.
And this led him to some really unusual scientific research. He started asking, could a common parasite, Toxoplasma gondii, yeah, you heard that right, a parasite, actually be playing a role in how decisions are made?
Now, before you dismiss this as some wild conspiracy theory, he grounded this hypothesis in actual science. He pointed to credible studies, like one from Germany's renowned Leibniz Institute, which suggests a link between this parasite and cognitive issues, especially in older people.
So the key takeaway here is that this wasn't just a wild guess. He was actually building a case, citing research that connected this parasite to a whole range of effects, from changes in brain function and behavior to increased impulsivity. His theory was, hey, if these biological factors are real, couldn't they also be influencing judges?
So faced with these complex possibilities, whether psychological or biological, he realized that trying to spot these patterns as a human was almost impossible. He'd hit a wall, and that's when he decided to turn to a totally new kind of investigator. And this was his light bulb moment. He realized that if judicial decisions are being driven by behavior instead of law, then predicting them isn't a job for a lawyer anymore. It's a job for a data scientist. Jurists are experts in law, not behavioral psychology or complex pattern recognition. And this comparison makes it so clear, right? On one side, you have the human lawyer, trained in the law, argues precedent, but is still, human with all the biases that come with it. On the other side, you have the AI. It couldn't care less about emotion or bias. It just excels at one thing, finding patterns in the data.
For him, this was the real power of AI. It's not just that it's objective, it's that it's fearless. It will process all the data, even the stuff that's uncomfortable or makes a human judge look bad. In a sense, the AI becomes the ultimate model of what an impartial judge should be.
So all of this, the investigation into arbitrariness, the search for a cause, and the turn to technology, it all leads to this incredible climax.
he decides to put his theory and his new AI tool to the ultimate test. He gave the AI a very specific mission. He fed it everything, every motion, every brief, every single ruling from the case files. And he didn't ask it, what does the law say? He asked it, based on the judge's past behavior, what are they going to do at this specific hearing on November 27, 2025? So the AI got to work crunching all of that data. It analyzed all the ignored arguments, the weird procedural moves, the vague orders, looking for the signal in the noise. It was searching for a consistent pattern in what seemed like chaos, and then it delivered its verdict.
And this was it. One single, powerful, and frankly, deeply unsettling number. 95%. Let that sink in. A 95% probability that the judge's decision would be arbitrary. Not that they would misinterpret the law, but that their decision wouldn't be based on the law at all. This was a prediction of human fallibility, calculated with cold, hard mathematical precision. For the lawyer, this was just a bombshell. I mean, his whole argument is summed up in this quote. If a judge's actions are so predictably arbitrary that an AI can call it with 95% certainty, then what's the point of the law? What's the point of the robes and the ritual? The entire system comes into question.
And that really is the profound question this whole thing leaves us with. It's not just about the justice system. If artificial intelligence can hold up a mirror and show us the patterns in our own biases with this kind of clarity, what does that mean for every field that relies on human judgment? The question is, now that we can see it, what are we going to do about it?